In the dark saga of World War II, few names loom larger than Adolf Hitler. He commanded armies, built a regime of fear, and shaped history with ruthless will. But history is not only made by tyrants and armies. It is also shaped by quiet acts of courage, moments that rarely make the headlines. This is one such story, the tale of an ordinary man who, for a brief moment, stood before the Nazi regime's might. He had no weapon, no army, only his words and his belief in something greater than fear. Even in the darkest times, the human spirit can shine. This is not a story of changing the war, but of preserving humanity when it was most threatened. It is about an old man who, facing the embodiment of hate, chose to speak of mercy, and in that moment, became a beacon of hope. Sometimes the most powerful act is a simple truth, spoken with dignity. To truly understand the old man's courage, we must first step into the world he inhabited. A world where every day was shadowed by uncertainty and dread. Germany in the early 1940s was a nation suffocated by fear and control, its people living under the constant gaze of an oppressive regime. The Nazi regime's symbols were everywhere, on buildings, in schools, and even in the most private corners of daily life. Its ideology was enforced relentlessly, leaving no room for dissent. The Gestapo could knock on any door, at any hour, and the threat of sudden arrest or disappearance haunted every household. Speaking out, or even showing kindness to the wrong person, could cost you everything: your job, your freedom, even your life. Most people chose silence, survival depended on it. Conversations were hushed, and trust was a rare and precious thing. The pressure to conform was immense. Fear isolated people and made them feel powerless, turning neighbors into strangers and friends into potential threats. The old man was not a soldier or a leader, just an ordinary citizen, caught in the grip of extraordinary tyranny, trying to hold on to his humanity. He saw the hatred and cruelty poisoning his country, witnessed neighbors persecuted and families torn apart by violence and suspicion. While others stayed silent, he held on to a quiet conviction that human decency mattered more than safety, and that compassion was a form of resistance. In a world ruled by fear, he chose to hold on to hope, believing that even small acts of courage could make a difference. Soon, his inner strength would be put to the ultimate test, as the regime's cruelty closed in around him. Sometimes the bravest act is simply refusing to look away, even when the world demands your silence. The stage was not a battlefield, but a public gathering. Hitler, surrounded by officials and soldiers, presided over a rally meant to display power and unity. Suddenly, soldiers dragged an elderly man from the crowd, accused of a minor crime against the state. In Nazi Germany, even a small act of kindness or a private comment could be seen as betrayal. The old man stood alone before Hitler, surrounded by hostility. The crowd expected him to beg for mercy, to be humiliated and punished. But he did not beg or plead. He stood tall, meeting Hitler's gaze with calm dignity. There was no fear in his eyes, only sadness for what his country had become. In that moment, his very posture was an act of defiance. He refused to be afraid. Hitler, expecting submission, demanded to know why the old man had defied the Reich. The air was tense, the crowd waited for a display of power. Instead, the old man spoke quietly, his words carrying unexpected weight. He did not argue or plead innocence. He simply said, "A great leader is not known by the enemies he destroys, but by the mercy he shows." The effect was immediate. Hitler fell silent, his anger replaced by stunned stillness. For a moment, the dictator seemed genuinely taken aback. The crowd and soldiers watched, shocked by this unexpected pause. The old man had not used force or threats, only a simple moral truth. He held up a mirror to a tyrant, and for a brief second Hitler saw a reflection he did not recognize. In that moment, hatred and anger were stopped. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is a single, courageous sentence. The world seemed to hold its breath. After a long, tense pause, Hitler made a decision that stunned everyone in the room. The air was thick with anticipation, as his advisors and soldiers waited for his verdict, expecting the worst. With a sudden, dismissive wave of his hand, Hitler said, "Let him go." His voice was cold but final, leaving no room for argument or hesitation among his men. The soldiers, surprised but obedient, released the old man. He walked quietly back into the crowd, his steps steady but his fate uncertain, never to be seen in public record again, his name lost to history. Why did Hitler let him go? Perhaps the old man's courage disarmed him, or perhaps it was a calculated show of mercy meant to unsettle those watching. Maybe for a brief moment, even a dictator could be moved by defiance. The immediate effect was small. The war raged on, the regime endured, and the machinery of oppression continued its relentless march. But for those who witnessed it, the memory lingered. It became a moment they would never forget, a rare glimpse of humanity in a time of darkness. They saw that it was possible to stand up to power, that words and courage could reach even the hardest of hearts, if only for a moment. The story became a quiet legend, a whisper of hope in a time of terror. It was passed from one person to another, growing with each retelling. The old man's survival proved that courage is not always a death sentence. Sometimes it is a spark that lights the way for others, even if only briefly. Sometimes standing up for what is right leads to a quiet victory, and plants a seed of doubt in the minds of oppressors. It reminds us that even in the darkest times, resistance is possible. His voice, though quiet, echoed long after he disappeared, inspiring others to believe that even the smallest act of bravery can leave a lasting mark on history. This story teaches us about the enduring power of dignity and courage. It reminds us that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can shine through with quiet resilience. Dignity is not just a word, it is a force that shapes how we face adversity and how we inspire others. The old man had no weapon, but he possessed moral strength. His resolve was unshakable, and his presence alone spoke volumes to those around him. He stood as a living example that true power does not always require force. He refused to abandon his principles even in the face of death. His unwavering commitment to what he believed in became a beacon of hope for others who witnessed his courage. His dignity was a shield that the regime could not break. No matter how much they tried to intimidate him, his inner strength remained untouched, inspiring those who saw his defiance. True power does not come from harming others, but from standing firm in what is right. The old man's example showed that peaceful resistance can be more powerful than any weapon. The old man's story offers a different perspective. There is quiet strength and integrity. In a world that often values loud displays of power, his calm resolve was a reminder that real courage can be silent and steadfast. Sometimes the most powerful response to hate is not more hate, but unwavering commitment to good. Compassion and understanding can disarm even the most hardened hearts. His power came from inner peace and a belief in universal truth. He drew strength from his convictions, and that serenity gave him the courage to face any challenge. This kind of strength is available to everyone. It requires only a clear conscience and courage. Anyone, regardless of age or circumstance, can choose to stand up for what is right. Violence can win battles, but not hearts. True change comes from those who inspire others through their example and their unwavering commitment to peace. The old man appealed to a shared sense of humanity. He reached out to others, building bridges where others saw only walls. Words, when spoken with truth and courage, can be the most powerful tools we have. They can move people to action and awaken hope in the hearts of many. They can even make a tyrant pause and listen. In the end, it is dignity, compassion, and truth that leave a lasting mark on the world. In the end, this is more than a historical anecdote. It is a story about the enduring flame of the human spirit. Even in the deepest darkness, a single act of courage can cast a bright light. The old man represents the best of us, the choice to speak up, to stand tall for what we believe in. We all face moments of injustice, big and small. In those moments we can choose to be like the old man, to speak a simple truth with dignity. Let us carry this lesson with us, believe in the power of our words. True heroism is not about the outcome, but about being true to our conscience. Remember the old man's quiet voice and unshakable dignity. We all have the capacity for courage, and by using it, we can each be a small light that pushes back the darkness.